Coming up on the Golfbet Roundtable, the John Deere Classic, maybe a week for Longshots. We've seen plenty of them on tour. Why this could be a good chance for you to sprinkle those bets. And what do you do with Jordan Spieth? Should be considered a favorite, but somehow he's not. Is there a decline to Jordan's game that maybe his fans should be worried about? New guest this week on the show, Benny B. We got Will Haskett from SiriusXM Radio going to be calling things on the tour's broadcast this week. Will, thanks for joining us, man.
Midwest Masters Week, boys. I got the hat to commemorate. Whitey's ice cream, tenderloin sandwiches for all of us Midwesterners. This is the week we dream of. I'm so happy to be here. Let's do this.
Can't wait to have you on here, Will. It's been awesome. Obviously, you've been, I think, to about 1,000 of these John Deere Classics, so you'll get great insight. You call it play-by-play as well. Out there, bettors out there, you're not going to get much better insight from someone who's seen every shot basically available on this course. Let's rumble, Chrissy. Let's get into it.
And before we get into John Deere specific stuff, I know something that we want to touch on. You know, it's responsible gaming is what we talk about all the time, Ben. And I know you have a little shtick that you want to talk about with your pick from last week, Cam Young, and why that ties into what our theme might be this week.
100%, Chris. Look, golf betting is tough, right? We know. Picking an outright winner is tough to do. If you were on Cam Davis last week at 80 to 1 or something along those lines, you're having a great time, you're riding the roller coaster. But if you're on Cam Young or Akshay Bhatia looked a winner until the last putt, obviously 3-putting for the first time on the last green, or on Young, who, as you know, was my pick last week, and saw him just implode mentally on the back nine when he still had a chance, snapping his driver shaft, as you saw there, with 5 holes to go and only being one back, including a par 5. You know, it can make you feel emotional. It can make you feel like you need to chase that. I was so close. I've got to chase these losses. I've got to chase it. I've got to double down, triple down. Not a good idea. That's a fool's errand, especially when we go into the John Deere Classic, where it's an opportunity week. And Will talk to this. Many guys who you haven't expected have won this. Super long shots. I mean, who would have thought Michael Kim winning by $1 million a few years ago would have been
27 under.
Definitely not something he thought would happen. So this is a week where, rather than trying to chase a loss on a guy who clearly is not ready to win. I'm sorry, Cam. I'm going to throw this out there. You're blacklisted from all my books until you can find a temperament where you can win down the stretch. I look at Bhatia, and he looked ready to win. He hit a 90-yard drive or whatever it was, shook it off, looked like a winner and a mature individual. Cam worries me in terms of that mentality. Some guys need it to fire him up. I'm not so sure with him. But anyway, back to this week. I think it's a week where we can potentially limit our unit size, sprinkle across the board, and have some fun.
Let's get those long shots. Let's get to those long shots, Will. I've got a list of 16 guys here. And Ben's whole shtick this week is sprinkle little $1, whatever you want to do, bets on a bunch of long shots. So here is the list I have for you, Will. Starting at the top, 50 to 1, Era Cole, going down the top 8 here. Anybody here pop out in your mind?
Yeah, so I'll go broadly here. So this is a golf course where you're going to have a ton of birdies. We're supposed to get completely drenched with rain over the next 24 to 36 hours up there. They're talking 1 to 2 inches. There's already a flood warning for the river going into this week. So it's going to be a very saturated golf course. It will play wider. It will play a little bit longer. I still think, though, over the course of time, the data has proven out in this golf course, though, that guys that keep the ball right in front of them and just maximize their chances and hit a ton of fairways have thrived here. It's not just the local ties that make Steve Stricker and Zach Johnson so good in this golf course. Think about what they do. They hit fairways and they maximize and they roll putts in. So when you're looking at these lists, who are guys? I don't care about length this week at all. So sorry, Jake Knapp. Not necessarily sure this is going to be the week for a guy like Jake Knapp, but you look at the rest of that list, guys. Andrew Putnam, Brendan Todd, Mark Hubbard, a whole bunch of guys that hit 1,000,000 fairways and can really roll the rock. So if I'm going to be sprinkling it on my underdogs or the long shots or whatever this week, plotters who can putt, I think, is really going to be the key. And, of course, we can have crazy wild weeks. We can have a Michael Kim type week. We could have a veteran like Lucas Glover a couple of years ago who finds it and resurrects their career. But the data's pretty simple, I think, when it comes to who's able to be successful. If it's not a top flight Jordan Spieth type of player, we're going to get to him in a little bit, like he did in 2013 and 2015. Give me a guy that's going to hit a ton of fairways this week and who I trust with a putter in his hands. And I think you've got a lot of them. And I will point out, last year, of the top 10 in Sepp Straka's win last year, everybody except for the late Grayson Murray at the end of the week in the top 10 started the week with odds that were less than 100 to 1. So it's not like we had a whole bunch of guys who are 150 to 1, 200 to 1. And the field's a little bit better this year, and that's a different topic for a different show at a different time as to why the field is better this year at the John Deere Classic. So I do think the value is going to come in that first page that you saw. I think somebody in the 50 to 100 to 1 range has a really good chance at winning this.
Second page you don't like, Ben? I'm sorry, Will. Do you like the second page? Anything here?
I'm big on Carson Young this week. He's the only guy that stands out on this list. He's a guy that hits a ton of fairways. He's got a couple of top 10s on golf courses and with bent grass greens, like we saw say it in Canada a couple of weeks back when he finished top 20 there. For whatever reason, my eyes went to Carson Young as soon as you flashed that screen.
Yeah, for me, it's back to that first page as well, where I really like it, Chris. Again, going back to the strategy that I'm talking about, I just think that it's a chance for you to enjoy the experience, right? Enjoy the John Deere Classic. The reality is, not a lot of you out there, or not everyone out there, knows the 150 guys or whatever it is in this field. They don't know the group all the way to the end. We know that, right? We know Jordan Spieth, we know Sung Jae Im, we know the guys at the top, but they might not necessarily be the ones to go all in on. Have some fun, enjoy getting to know some of these players. Put small, as I said, unit size on guys that you've heard of, you've thought of, you've maybe read something about, you have a little affinity with, and ride the roller coaster with them without putting too much on it. So you're not putting yourself in any danger, but get to know the new up-and-coming talent on the PGA Tour. That's what this is all about. It shows it's an opportunity week for all of these guys. It's when they can potentially push themselves all the way into FedEx Cup playoffs, or at least get themselves in really good position before the fall. I look at this list, and I mean, look at Andrew Novak's a great example of a guy who's been, knocking on the door this year, having a few decent results. Who's to say this can't be a week where he can do it again and really push for it? Mark Hubbard is another guy I'll get to later in the show. I think he has had some great results here over the last few years, and you're still getting 55 to 1. And Brendan Todd looks like the potential Lucas Glover that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And
I'm starting to wonder, maybe we shouldn't worry about his age.
No, well, it's this place has got nothing to do with age. Age, throw age out the window. Any old guy can win here. We could legitimately see a Zach Johnson renaissance for 1 week here. It's absolutely possible that he could come from nowhere, and you'd sit there and go, how did I not think of that because of all his results? Mm-hmm. But it's possible. It's there. There's clearly there'd be 5 or 10 names not on this list you put up, Chris, that could come from nowhere. Could have not had a top 10 this year, but are just really good, solid players. What about even like what Harry Higgs, I think, is in the field this week?
Yeah.
Been playing amazing on the KFT. Hasn't got necessarily great results here in the past, but this is a different Higgs. He knows that he's coming back to the tour. He's playing with freedom. They're out there. And so he's a guy that you would love to watch. Chuck $1 on him and you're having fun riding with him, right? That's what I'm sort of getting.
Grayson Sig's another one too.
Yeah, 100.
Yeah. There's some good names. I think I don't know if I want to call it value, but I'm saying when you look at guys that sort of fit the mold of people that are here, again, this is a tournament near and dear to my heart because of the Midwestern side of it. There are a few guys in this. You had Adam Shank's name. He hasn't been playing well enough, nor do I think it's a great golf course fit for him. But you've got a bunch of Midwestern sort of guys that have always talked about and circled this sort of date. You've got young up-and-comers. I mean, Luke Clanton gets back in the field after the top 10 from last week. So you've got some young players, although I think his game far suited Detroit Country Club than it does TPC Deer Run. But I just love that this week offers the opportunity to see a guy in his 40s, like what, say, Ryan Moore did a few years ago win, or what Lucas Glover did win. But you could also end up with a 22-year-old or a 20-year-old like Jordan Spieth when he did it in 2013. It's always a great mix, and we'll see what the story does. But, again, I think this week when you look at the first page of those long shots and then into that sort of Carson Young, and even like a crazy flyer, like I see a Hayden Buckley who's played poorly, but at 200 to 1, a guy that hits a lot of fairways and just, I think understands this type of golf, a guy that grew up and went to Missouri and stuff. I think that there's some potential there for some of those guys to just have the week of their lives. But again, I think that there's a little bit more depth in that 50 to 100 to 1 sort of pack. I just think one of those guys is going to be there at the end.
Yeah, Neil Shipley, I think, is another one in there.
Yeah, I almost put him on the list.
What about Patrick Rogers? I mean, should have won there, to be honest, quite a few years back.
The most important tournament to Patrick. He grew up
Yeah.
coming to this event, even more so than driving. He grew up on the west side of Indy. I grew up on the north side of Indianapolis, and he and his family would go to the John Deere Classic every single summer. It is so important to him. I worry about how much it's important to him. I honestly do. I mean, it's crazy for people who are watching this to say, how can these guys think that the John Deere Classic is the bee's knees, if you will? A lot of these guys do. Like those of us that grew up in Indiana and Illinois and Iowa and some of these places, there aren't a lot of us on tour. And for those of us that are, this was a really big tournament each and every year to watch guys. You knew the club pros that were trying to qualify on a Monday. You knew the amateurs that were getting spotlights into it. It's very important for Midwest golf because it's a very approachable, friendly, laid-back environment PGA Tour event. And there are plenty of them, from the Purdue guys and Tyler Duncan and Adam Schenk to Patrick Rogers, the Central Indiana guy. They want to win this golf tournament really badly because it meant something to them growing up.
I'll say this. I've only been to one. Right, I've only been to one personally on the ground, but here's the deal. People ask me all the time, like, what's the sort of best or most surprising tournament that you've been to? And I do say the John Deere Classic. I went thinking it was going to be, what am I doing here? This is this time of year. I want to be somewhere else, whatever else. And it was amazing the week I was there. Absolutely amazing. Patrick Rogers were really close that year, actually. Probably should have won, but did get very nervous down the stretch, which cost him. But like from everything, everyone there is so lovely. They have the big dig with the players and families, which is amazing. They do a whole bunch of stuff around the town, the city. I went to multiple concerts, backstage even at a few, which was amazing. They really, really look after you there. If you're anywhere near the area and you're like, but it's only Jordan, I'm telling you, get there anyway. You're going to have the time of your life.
Anybody can win it, and that's why it's called the Midwest Major. Jordan Spieth has won it multiple times, but Will, we have to bring it up. Let's throw away the injury because that could be the reason why Jordan Spieth is not playing the golf he's playing right now. But I think it would be very honest to say that Jordan Spieth's game is never going to – I'm not even talking about 2015, okay? Not going to be what it was even the last 3, 4, 5 years. When he was after that peak from the mid-2010s. What is your thought on a potential decline of Jordan Spieth in the future?
It's really hard because when you say decline, it's what are we comparing it to?
Exactly.
Jordan Spieth's 2015 and 2017 is some of the greatest golf that's ever been played.
And that's not
ever
fair.
Been played. So it'd be like saying, hey, Tiger in 2004, you're not the same Tiger as you were in 2000. Like, is Tiger on the decline? You know what I'm saying? Like, because you're comparing it to this incredible pinnacle of performance.
Yep.
The interesting thing to me is if you had asked me when I was there in 2015 when he won, didn't even have to show up to the tournament, and did so because it meant so much to him because of the opportunity they gave him in 2013, did that, and then went over and almost won the next major in that 2 majors in a row that he had in 2015. If you had told me at the end of that tournament that on this day, July 2nd of 2024, that Jordan Spieth would be gaining a half a shot more with his driver than he would his putter, I wouldn't have believed. He's a top 20 driver on the PGA Tour. He hits it long and he hits it relatively straight now, which was never what Jordan Spieth's game was. It's incredible to me to see how different of a player he is. But you mentioned it. The injury, I think, is everything, to be honest with you. I'm not saying the injury is keeping him from being 2015. I think probabilities is keeping him from being the player in 2015 because no one's going to be able to match that level of golf. But I think there's something in how much work he's been able to put in, how much he's had to compensate for the injury. I'm not sure what he's going to do at the end of the year. Does he shut it down for a longer period of time? Does he eventually try and seek out, he calls it he just needs rest away from golf, and he's not giving himself rest away from golf. Does he seek other changes away from rest? I don't know. I know the injury has to be a major part of it. It is weird for him not to be the favorite this week, having won here twice. He drives it great, though. So could he win this week? He absolutely could win, and it'll completely change our tune going into next week. But he's just a shell of himself right now. But I think you nailed it on the head. I think it's injury, and it's injury only.
Speaking of 2015, you were talking about if you had told me he would have been this with his driver and not with his putter. If I'd have told you that you would have got Jordan Spieth at 20-1 and Jason Day at 33-1 at the John Deere Classic, right? At any stage in the next 10 years or whatever it was, you would have jumped and put your house on it. So it's interesting to see how it has changed. You're right. Back then, both of them actually were putting unconsciously, ridiculously how good they were doing their short game and whatnot. And so they were making a bunch of birdies more than others might. With Spieth here, it's a roller coaster that, again, it's fun to ride. If you're a Spieth fan, it's fun to watch. But if you're going to put your hard-earned on it, I don't know how much you're going to really love riding that ride, So he's already drifted. I think he started at 18 or maybe 16 or 18 to 1. He's moved out to 20 to 1.
Yes.
So that tells you enough that there's not necessarily any big money coming. And even potentially, the Spieth Legion, the Spieth fans aren't really jumping on big at this point because they know, as much as anyone, that he's just as likely to WD with that wrist injury that he is to win. And so you want to put money, you want to watch him, you want to root for him, absolutely. So for me, if you're going to do anything with Spieth bets, it's round by round. It's, a head-to-head in round 1 against whoever, or it's how many birdies he's going to have in round 1, a special that you might find. I would stay away from Jordan Spieth in all outright markets basically until he wins again. Just miss it. You are going to miss it.
Or until the
I'm not
Open.
going to be on it.
I think he's built to win Open championships.
Correct.
I think this version of him is built to be creative, to use that creativity, and if he stays healthy this week and shows you a glimmer of something, then start to pay attention to what his number looks like going to Troon.
Let's change the bar then. The bar's not 2015. It's not even when he was winning the Open. Let's change the bar to, can Jordan Spieth win once a year or once every other year for the next decade?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. If he stays healthy, absolutely. Generational short game, Ben. I mean, I know it's not. I know the numbers don't line up, but for 4 rounds, again, my kids' lives are on the line. He's in the Rolodex to make a 10-footer. You know what I'm saying? Very few other guys I'm going to other than Jordan Spieth for that 10-footer or for an up and down or for a chip. Again, can he pull it together for 4 rounds and do it? And again, the driving is great. If he can just get it somewhere within being able to take advantage of a heater week from a short game standpoint, it used to be, what's going on with this snap hook off the tee or the problems? The driver's great right now. I don't think he's as far off as the results necessarily show us if he was healthy.
100%. I think that, if the standard is, can he just win once every 2 years? Yes. It just in betting terms, I'm not going to bet on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to let it happen. I'm going to enjoy that it happens when it happens. Unless he's in the 50-plus range, and that's not going to happen on the places where he probably will win or probably gets it done. So, until he hits that sort of number, I wouldn't be necessarily looking at him. You mentioned the Open. That is definitely a week where if he fits into the long shot category, if he does get 50, 60, 70, 80, then you can consider Jordan Spieth as one of your long shots. Outside of that, I said 20 to 1 any week right now, no matter where it is, even if it's in his backyard, I'm probably staying off and just wishing him the best and hoping he does win.
The reason why we're talking about it this week is because none of us have Jordan winning. No one's talking about Jordan from what I'm seeing. So who is your winner, Will, this week?
I'm going with now the betting favorite. I'm going with Sung Jae. You know what? I was dreading having the Patrick Cantlay conversation before he withdrew because I was really intrigued by what Patrick could do on this golf course this week, just in terms of hunting birdies and the last time we saw him playing as well as he did. And so I was thinking about, was I going to have the fade Patrick in favor of Sung Jae Im? And it was way easier to say Sung Jae Im was going to win this golf tournament when he wasn't the number 1 guy on the board. But when you look at the results, it's not even just the form that you've seen. He's got, 4 top 10s in his last 5 starts or 6 starts, I think. 6 starts going back. And the 2 cuts that he missed, the PGA and the U.S. Open, both horrible putting weeks for him. Yep. And Valhalla does have bent grass greens. They didn't, obviously, at the U.S. Open. Pinehurst, those were tricked out, crazy sort of Bermuda surfaces. But the other theme in all of this, whether it's Colonial, Travelers, Memorial, bent grass putting surfaces, his putting numbers have really hit an uptick as we've gone into the summer months and we're playing on bent. So I talked about guys that hit a lot of fairways. He's an elite driver of the golf ball, especially when it comes from an accuracy standpoint. I think he's going to maximize. I just love the run of form that Sung Jae is on right now, and I like the combination of circumstances. It's an awfully terrible pick by me to take the guy who's now number 1 on the board.
But is it? But is it if he wins? Why we have this debate all the time.
Yeah.
Is it really terrible if he wins? Like, Ben, we wanted to rib you last week for picking Cam Young, who almost could have, maybe should have won. Why is it a bad pick?
He should win this week now.
Why is it a bad pick?
He should win.
If he should win, why is it a bad pick?
That is the reality. He should win.
Yes.
My concern is exactly that. Sung Jae is another one of the guys who, when he should win, not necessarily has brought out his best. And that's just a feeling thing. You're right. Well, I mean, he's been playing great. You mentioned the putting. I'm a little worried about that. If his putter is not hot, it goes a little cold, then I don't think you're getting quote unquote any value at 14 to 1. But if he just putts half decent, you're getting good value if he wins, right? You're getting a Sungjae winner, a favourite at 14. Most weeks we're sitting here debating whether we should bet Scotty Scheffler at 4 to 1 or 3
because it's the best pick.
We don't have to worry about that. We got to, your favourite is at 14. In those other weeks we pick a guy at 14 who's like 5th, 6th on the board. So with that reality in check, then it could turn out to be a great pick, and any pick that wins is a great pick in the end, right? Like, whichever way you slice it. I love Sungjae as a guy. I honestly a little disappointed that he hasn't taken it to the next level over the last few years. Having seen him up close a few times when he first burst on the scene, especially when he was first in the President's Cup team for the international guys. Like watching him up and close and being part of those setups, I was like, wow, this guy is going to dominate for the next few years, and we didn't necessarily see that. I want to smash you real for picking him, but because I like him, I'm not going to get too hard on you, and he should win. That's the reality.
He should win. Now, I will say this about should winning. He's my pick to win. Now, if I was doing what you were doing, I'm looking at a betting strategy this week, I'm not necessarily sure if that's the outright play that I want, even though he's my pick to win, and that's me foreshadowing something coming up later here in the show.
I don't think we need to shy away from favorites this time of year. If we're going to call last week similar to this week, the Birdie Fest on the PGA Tour, Akshay Bhatia, Cam Young, both went down to the final holes. 2 of the 3 top favorites last week. I'm not saying it's going to happen again, but I don't think anybody should ever be worried about, is my favorite pick a good pick? Because they're the favorite for a reason. And golf, it's fickle. You need one random week, one random shot that could derail you or bring you to the top, and you have no idea if your good pick's a good pick until it goes out and proves he's the favorite. I mean, never be worried about who you're picking just because they're the favorite. Ben, your winner is also close to a favorite.
Yes, so going full circle, and I'll say this about Sungjae as well, but I'm on Denny McCarthy as a winner this week. It's only 22 to 1, right? So I'm saying don't put the house on it. I'm saying, you don't need to put big money on it to chase what may not come out. But Denny's been 6th here the last 2 years. He's second on tour in strokes gained putting. Obviously, I think he can roll the rock. He's shown that an ability to take on the best. Probably should have won the Memorial last year. Had a chance, obviously, to take down Akshay, just putting it unconsciously in Texas earlier this year. Again, it's just a feel on he can get low, he can get hot with the putter better than anyone else in this field, right? If his putter is hot, he is lights out the best putter in this field. I'm banking on him being able to do that and go super low. That's what I'm thinking of. But I'm not advocating, going in for hundreds of dollars on a 22 to 1 shot this week. Not at all. Same as I'd say about Will's pick in Sungjae. Yeah, you can pick him, but just go for a small outlay and then sprinkle further down the board, smaller picks to give yourself some fun watching the John Deere Classic. Because if your favourite does have a rough start, like let's look at Tom Kim last week. A lot of guys are on him because he played well coming in. Miscut. It can happen. It's golf. So don't put the house on any one of the chalk. Put a little bit on if you like them, like I like Denny, and then sprinkle some further down the board.
I'll go. I like, what I like about it? We're showing his results there at the bottom of the screen. I'll go full psychology here for Denny. I think he expected to win this golf tournament last year because he was playing so good coming into it. It's like, this is my chance. This is where I'm going to show everybody that I'm a winner. And he over-promised himself and then pressed too much early in that tournament a little bit last year. I think, again, he's not the same level. He's like a quarter of a shot maybe worse than he was as a player at this time a year ago. And
but
still
he's
fully capable of winning, but he's
due.
due. And I'd be really interested to see if he gets himself in the position he has really grinded on winning. That's who he wants to be, to prove himself. He should have won in San Antonio. 99 of 100 golfers would have won in San Antonio if it weren't for Akshay's incredible week. I think if he puts himself in position, he will have the head to get it across the line.
That's the funny thing about golf. You got guys who you think are due, and they end up doing it. And you have guys you think are going to continue success. They are due to fall off. So you're right. Denny McCarthy's the exact opposite. He's due to get back up there. And I really feel like my winner, Will, I want your thoughts on Maverick McNeely, my winner, who's got similar odds to Denny McCarthy. I feel like he's due because let's go back to 2021, 2022 when he was bursting on the scene. People were knowing his name because he was getting up there. Well, what's happened the last year and a half hasn't really gotten that recognition because he's not playing that right. I think Maverick's got the game. He is due, in my mind, to have a high finish. Does he win? I don't know, but I would like to take a chance on him at plus 2,500.
I love the trend. I mean, he's right there for somebody who, if you look back at what his results have been and you see him right there, and you look at the numbers across the board, he's been very consistent. Tee to green, everything working. We know how he loves to putt. He's putted great his last 2 starts. Both of those happen to be on bent grass golf courses. In fact, he's had 3 straight really good finishes, and 4 straight, and they've all been on bent grass golf courses, which I think matters this week. I love the trend, and we would look back on his current run right now if he won, and more people would be like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because he's quote-unquote trending, but he hasn't done anything to necessarily grab our attention in that month and a half leading up to what could be a big week for him.
Here's the knock on Matt, and this is, I'm not necessarily saying I agree with this, but the thing is, when it gets down to the crunch, does he really have the same desire to win as other people? People talk about his upbringing. He came from a lot of money. Look, he's had everything, that he's needed his whole life, and they worry that when push comes to shove against another guy who maybe, quote unquote, wants it or needs it more, can beat him in those situations. So I think Mav thinks that's a total bunch of BS, and I tend to agree with him, but he needs to prove it. Yeah. But he needs to prove it, right? Sure. So I think that when he goes out there and does close, that'll finally close that little loophole of some people think he doesn't have the hunger for it. And I think that's probably what partly drives him. So let's see if he can take advantage of a week where, yes, this has been given the opportunity. You're in form. You played decently before. You're not going up against the top 10, 15 players on tour. Show us that you are hungry for it. Show us you can get after it and go get it.
I will say this also, guys. Last week showed us how much importance these guys put on winning. They're all making ridiculous sums of money. You could not win now on the PGA Tour and be set for life after being on tour for a couple of seasons, which is incredible where the sport of golf has gone. Again, different topic for a different show at a different time. But winning matters now. It's the one thing you can measure yourself against the other guy in the locker room on, and you could see what it meant. Akshay's already won once this year and admitted the nerves of winning for a second time got to him on that final putt. What Cam Young is dealing with to just try and win, to prove that he can actually do it and what it means. I think all of these guys now, that the only thing that truly matters is winning, because money right now has almost become a non-issue. And I say that, and if there's somebody that's watching who's 175th in FedEx Cup standings, I understand that money is an issue. But to any of these guys that we've discussed right now, money means nothing. Money means nothing now at the top of the game outside of however much you have in your bank account. The only thing you can measure yourself against other people is winning. I think it's actually harder from a pressure standpoint to win now, even though there's less of your livelihood on the line, because it matters so much in the locker room. It's
ironic you said that, because I'm looking at your long shot, Will. Your long shot.
Here we go.
Being a guy that everybody loved on the Netflix show. And he's the opposite of what you're talking about.
He is. Horrible Sunday. And I know that really bothered Joel with the 76 this past week. But again, fits the profile of someone whose putting numbers are looking really good of late, hits a ton of fairways, would have a ton of crowd support. It kind of fits the vibe of a John Deere Classic. I think everything from he's gotten over I'm a celebrity, I'm playing bad golf, and now I'm comfortable, I understand what's going to be expected of me out here, and he's figured out the golf game part of it over the last month or so. So when I saw that I could get Joel Damon at triple digits this week, I felt like that was, to me, the long shot to pick for me. So I think I would be one of thousands of people who would love to see Joel and Gino get it done this week. So let's make it happen.
And clearly there were some, because he has moved from 100 to 1 into 80 to 1. So there's already been a sprinkle on him. The reality is, I think I wrote this in I can't remember which day, but last week I had my draws and fades column, which is, who to get on live after each round. And I put him in a draw category with an asterisk saying, like, this guy is the total risk reward scenario right here. You're still getting great juicy odds, because there's a good chance he won't finish it through the 4 rounds. But if he does, you're going to kick yourself for not getting on these juicy odds.
Yeah.
That number,
it was 110 to 1 yesterday, Ben. It was 110 to 1 yesterday when I sent the email. It's 80 to 1 now.
Yeah, 80 to 1 now. So that shows you that a handful of people have just thrown a dollar or two on him, $5 or whatever. Said this is, again, the perfect scenario, what we spoke about earlier in the show. He is absolutely someone that you could put $1 on and have the time of your life watching and ride it. You're going to be like, oh, come on. Oh, what a great putt. What a great hole out. Like, he can do it all. as you said, I'm a big believer in stories as well. The stories win golf tournaments. I know that's an old journalistic part of me being in this, but like Cam Davis ended up being a story. He'd gone to a hypnotherapist of all things. He let us all know afterwards. You wouldn't have known this unless he wins, and then it's a great story, right? Like, he would be a great story to win. So again, I want to argue against you, but I can't. I love this bloke, and I hope he does have a big week.
Oh, Benny, argue for your long shot. Dollar on Ben Griffin seems like a pretty smart pick to me.
Yeah, I don't mind that as well, because look, he hasn't played here. He hasn't done this, which, well, you'll be able to talk to after I finish here whether that's going to be a huge problem. But I feel like most PGA Tour professionals now can go to a place and pick it up pretty quickly. He has, I think, 5th on tour for rounds in the 60s. We know it's going to take 4 of those basically to win here or to finish in the top 10. I think that he could be a person who does it. He was second not that long ago in Canada, so he's shown some form coming in. I think he could be a surprise packet for some because, as I said, he's not played this, so he's off the radar of a few people who like to look at course history. Tell me, Will, is it crazy if someone who's not played there before could potentially contend?
No, and especially as wet as it's supposed to be, you're not going to have, the, hey, where does this run out, or some of the lines and stuff. Once his caddy should be able to get him to where he needs to go. I wouldn't call the greens very funky either, to where somebody who's been out and around will be able to figure them out. So, no, I don't have a problem with it. And I kind of like the shot shaping that was required at the RBC Canadian Open, with sort of the way that there are a couple of holes out here where you really have to kind of pick a spot. You want to work the ball a little. I like where Ben Griffin showed us a few weeks ago in Canada, just kind of with his creativity on an interesting golf course. And while this one doesn't have the same difficulty in the green complexes like we had there in Toronto, I do think that this is a week, and he was definitely on my radar as well. So I also am going to be friendly, and I'm not going to bash you for that one because I like Ben Griffin.
I'm not going to flash up my long shot, because my long shot, Ben, is actually the same as your best bet for a top 10, and we've been talking about him for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, another guy in the 55, 60 to 1 range. Homeless Hubs. Again, we speak about good stories and people who fit the trend of the type of golf that might have fun. They're at the John Deere Classic. I love the Hub. Hubs will enjoy the crowds. He'll get into it when he's playing well. He's just struck me as the guy that's been up and thereabouts when it mattered a few times this year. He's really consistent, right? He's making cuts left, right, and center. Just needs that one extra gear, that one more turn of the screw to take it up and get into the top 20s and top 10s. I'm going to back him to be at good odds for this to be that week. I think he's had 2 top 15s last year. He was top 10 there last year. So why not be able to repeat when you get some juicy odds on it?
Will, craziest stat of the year. 18 events for Hubbard this year. 18 made cuts. You talk about due.
He's number 1, man. Number 1 in the streak right now, isn't he? Was it? Yeah, because Xander was out, right? So is it Hubbard now, or where is he on the number 1 in terms of just a couple of guys in front of him? I guess. It's incredible.
Can't exactly remember. My best bet is a guy who's getting a lot of traction right now, and I'm sticking on him.
Yes.
I'm sticking on him, Ben, because last week, Will, I picked Davis Thompson to win. He came close. He didn't really contend until the very end. He was a Cam Davis not getting up and down for par on 18 away from being in a playoff with a bunch of guys. Davis Thompson, to me, is somebody who here's what the thing I like to tell people is, if you like picking somebody and you think they're going to do good, just because you didn't have success with them once doesn't mean you can't go back to them a week or 2 or a month later. I like Davis Thompson for top 10 here, at least at plus 225, being for the fact that he's playing as well as anybody at this field right now. Why not pick him just because I picked him last week?
If you look at the odds board, by the way, I think the only Americans higher than him are Mav and maybe Jordan.
Jordan is barely.
To it.
I think he's 22 and Jordan's 20.
Give me the top American market for Davis Thompson this week, so you don't have to worry about the Sung J M, Seth Straka, Aaron Rise of the world that are all kind of trending a little bit higher than that one, but maybe gives you a little bit more scratch than the top 10 it might do there. So give me Davis Thompson, low American.
It's so funny. That was potentially going to be one of my secret bets for our newsletter.
Really? Is it now, or are you going to stay away from it now?
I'm going to have to stay away because Will's stolen it, so it won't be exclusive to the newsletter, folks. The starter on PGAtour.com. I'll have to come up with another one, but that was a sneaky one. I had to look. I've been wrestling with this, and I spoke to Chris about it. Thompson and Aaron Rye, are the 2 guys that in form. So it's almost mirroring the week before when we had Bartia and Tom Kim, right? So you got Tom Kim, Bartia coming in. Oh, they're hot. We've got to keep the hot hand going. And I said to the Rento last week, I said one of them or two of them will finish in the top 10, but someone won't. I couldn't figure out who it was going to be, but it ended up being Tom Kim going out, and Bartia playing well. I'm having that debate internally now with Thompson and Aaron Rai.
You guys, go ahead and finish your thought. I have the market.
Okay, I was just saying, like, Aaron Rai is one that is clearly a guy that knows how to get in the top 10 of tournaments, but is having trouble taking that next step in closing. Sure. The odds are prohibitively low now on him this week, so that's what's kept me off him. But I could easily see me going at the end of the week, I picked him for the top 5 last week. That cashed at 5-1, and now I'm off him. I mean, it seems strange, but is he going to go backwards? We'll see. And Davis Thompson, the other one, who was the hottest guy on the weekend, I think, the 2 weekend rounds, he flew up the board. So he is theoretically on a heater, right, in form. So again, I want to be like, Chris, you're kidding. He's going to have a fallback, but maybe he won't.
It's an American-dominated field, so obviously odds to be top American are not what they were to be top European or top Asian.
Sure.
Plus 1,800 for Davis Thompson to be top American.
That's a better bet than him to win.
But it's like basically they're almost the same. I think he's 22.
100%.
Yes.
100%. If he wins, he's still a top American, but you're hedging a little bit in case Sungjae does what we expect Sungjae to do.
Yes.
Jason Day could come out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like there are some guys. That's actually, I think that's a way better bet for.
We've talked about Sepp Straka the whole show. Like, I mean, he could ruin.
Yes.
We haven't said his name one time until now.
We have not.
What about that, Will? You were there, as I said. Like, he's the only guy ever to win at TPC Deer Run that had a round over par. The only guy. And I think he's lucky he started with it. Obviously, if he did that in round 2 or round 3, he probably doesn't win, right? But he started with a 73 and then just went lights out and dominated. Do you think that's possible again for anyone? Or I'm of the belief that was a bit of a miss. That's out of the box. It's not going to happen again. You need 4 rounds in the 60s. But tell me, do we think someone can make that hot run again if they start
again?
Forward?
If they get the rain that they're expecting, I mean, we've had a lot of wet years. It's impossible in July in the Midwest to not have the golf course be soft. Like, you just can't, it's too hot and the bent grass gets too taxed. But with as much water as is supposed to dump on the golf course in the 24 to 48 hours leading into the actual golf tournament, you get some of those Paul Goydo, Steve Stricker sort of vibes, because that golf course was an absolute dartboard the year that Strick shot 60, went on to win, and Goydo's opened with 59. So I think we could potentially see some of those type of scores. So no, I don't think this is the year where you can shoot 75 or 73 or whatever it was that Sepp opened with last year, make a putting adjustment, and then just go ham for the rest of the week on the golf course. I just don't think that happens. So I think you have to go crazy low, I think, all 4 days.
We're going to get lift, clean, and place almost certainly. So they're going to be
I think so. Yeah.
Dead aim.
Before we go, Will Haskett, SiriusXM Radio, all this knowledge on this event. What's your best bet anything you want anywhere that might not be on our screen or anything we have not talked about in the last 40 minutes?
All right, so we didn't actually run the one that I had, which was low risk, low reward. So I wouldn't bet Sungjae Im to win, even though I think he should win the golf tournament. But at the beginning of this week, he was like plus 240 for a top 10. I think it's down to like plus 170. And I still will take plus money on Sungjae Im on this golf course against this field for a top 10. I just feel like if you're looking to make money, that's the way that you go about it, as opposed to, because again, like, you bet him to win and he gets clipped by a Michael Kim story. And it's like, well, what are you supposed to do? Like, some guy showed up and shot 64 for 4 straight days. Yeah. Like, what are you supposed to do? And Im finishes 4 shots back, but it's still a top 5 or a top 10 sort of finish. I thought that was I still kind of feel like it's the best bet. I just don't see a scenario where he isn't able to get it done this week, at least from a top 10 standpoint. I would be shocked if Sungjae Im does not have a late tee time on Sunday.
I'd say the best bet is Will Haskett having the time of his life back at the John Deere Classic. That's minus 5,000.
10 in a row? Is this going to be 11 or 10?
Well, let's see. This is my 12th year on PGA Tour radio, and I've made the drive, I think, all but 1 year. There's some remote stuff that's in there as well, but I've worked this tournament pretty much every year. It's kind of a running joke amongst the crew. Like, you can't take this tournament away from me. But it's great. I get the same cart driver every year. He makes, he's got a buddy in town that makes the most amazing jerky. One year we had prime rib jerky. Holy cow. It was a game-changing experience. You got the Whitey's ice cream. You got the tenderloins. It is, and by the way, I will say this: it is the #1 fundraiser for the entire Quad Cities area.
Awesome.
There are dozens of nonprofits that exist only because of the revenue that comes from this particular week. So I will leave with this. We're talking about all the fun things. We're talking about gaming and all that. But in this world, crazy world that we live in professional golf, I don't want people to lose sight of the fact that on the PGA Tour, there are incredible weeks, and this is one of those weeks. This is single-handedly the most important thing that happens in the Quad Cities every single year is this tournament. I can't wait to get there and see all my Midwesterners.
Yeah.
Great way to end.